Picture this. You walk into a room, and before you've even said a word, someone's energy hits you like a punch in the gut. They smile, but it's not kindness, it's calculation. They speak, but every word feels like it's dipped in acid. And for some reason, you feel smaller. Now here's the truth. No one tells you. Toxic people are not rare. They're everywhere. They can be in your office, in your friend group, even sitting at your family dinner table. Some are loud and obvious. Others, they're subtle. They smile while they chip away at you, piece by piece. I'm going to ask you something uncomfortable. How many opportunities in your life have you lost? Not because you weren't good enough, but because you allowed the wrong person to take up space in your mind. How much time have you wasted replaying someone's words over and over in your head, like a bad song you can't turn off? If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, doubting yourself, or even angry without knowing why, then you've been poisoned. And here's the scary part. Most people don't even realize it's happening until the damage is done. But here's the good news. I'm going to show you the smartest way to deal with toxic people. Not the loudest way. Not the most dramatic way. The smartest, the way that lets you keep your power, your peace, and your self-respect every single time. Because the truth is, you will never get rid of all the toxic people in your life. But you can make sure they never ever get the best of you again. And once you learn how to do that, you won't just survive them, you'll outsmart them. And that is where the real win happens. When you deal with someone toxic, the first mistake most people make is assuming it's about them. They think, what did I do? Why are they treating me this way? Did I say something wrong? But here's the reality you need to burn into your brain. Their behavior is a mirror of them, not a reflection of you. It's their insecurities, their fears, their failures, and their pain spilling over into the room. You just happen to be standing close enough to get splashed. Think about it like this. If a snake bites you, you don't take it personally. You don't stand there saying, why would the snake do that? Did I offend it? No. You understand that a snake produces venom. That's its nature. And toxic people, they produce emotional venom. Sometimes it's jealousy. Sometimes it's control. Sometimes it's a need to bring others down so they can feel taller. But no matter the form, it's coming from what's already inside them. The danger is when you let their words and actions bypass your logic and hit you straight in the heart. Suddenly, you're replaying their comment. You're questioning your worth. You're getting defensive. Maybe even lashing back. And now they've got you exactly where they want you, reactive, emotional, and off balance. And here's the hard truth. Toxic people feed off that reaction. They need it. Your reaction is the oxygen to their fire. Take it away, and you take away their power. I've seen this play out in the most high-pressure environments you can imagine. In interrogation rooms, on the street, and negotiations. Someone tries to provoke you, push your buttons, test your limits because they want to control the dynamic. The moment you react, you've given them the map to your emotions. They now know exactly where to hit next time. But if you remain still, steady, watching without absorbing, that's when you flip the power. You stop being the target and start being the observer. You have to train yourself to step back mentally in those moments. Imagine putting an invisible glass wall between you and them. You can hear their words, you can see their expressions, but they can't reach you. You're analyzing them like a case study. Why is this person acting this way? What's going on in their world that makes them need to do this? When you shift from I'm hurt to I'm studying this, you change the entire dynamic. You're no longer in the emotional storm. You're above it, watching from the balcony. Sometimes toxic people act out because they feel threatened by you. Your confidence, your competence, your success, it reminds them of everything they're not doing. And instead of rising to your level, they try to pull you down to theirs. This is why you cannot measure your worth based on someone else's treatment of you. If you start believing their opinion of you, you give them a power they have not earned. Let me be blunt. Not everyone's opinion matters. If someone has shown you they operate from jealousy, manipulation, or insecurity, why would you hand them the keys to your self-esteem? That's like letting a thief hold your wallet and expecting them not to take the cash. Another thing to understand, toxic behavior often follows patterns. People repeat what works for them. If making sarcastic comments gets a reaction out of you, they'll keep doing it. If guilt-tripping you gets you to do what they want, they'll keep using it. Once you spot the pattern, you take away the element of surprise. They're not unpredictable anymore. They're predictable. And that's when you can start playing smarter. Here's something that might sting. Sometimes we personalize toxicity because deep down, we're looking for validation from the wrong people. We want the approval of that one difficult boss. We want the acceptance of that one critical family member. But every time you go back hoping for a different outcome, you're stepping right back into the same trap. You have to accept that some people are committed to misunderstanding you, no matter what you do. And that's not your battle to fight. One mental shift that will save you endless energy is this. Stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And start asking, why am I still letting it in? The moment you stop personalizing their actions, you take away the emotional hook they've been using on you. You stop making their storm your storm. This doesn't mean you ignore bad behavior or let people walk over you. It means you respond from clarity, not from emotional chaos. You decide when to speak up, when to set a boundary, and when to walk away. Not because you're hurt, but because you're strategic. Remember, you're not here to fix them. You're not here to convince them to treat you better. You're here to protect your space, your energy, and your peace. And that starts with a simple, powerful understanding that what they throw at you is theirs to carry, not yours to hold. When you stop personalizing toxicity, something incredible happens. You stop being their victim and you start being untouchable. You'll notice the comments that used to keep you up at night suddenly feel small. The manipulation that once made you question yourself now looks obvious. And the people who thrive on draining others, they'll find someone else to feed on because you're no longer giving them what they need. That's the first step. You can't win a game if you don't even understand the rules. And in the game toxic people play, the rule is simple. Don't get hooked. See their behavior for what it is, not for what it tries to make you feel. Because once you can do that, you've already taken their greatest weapon away. Toxic people have one major advantage over most people. They know how to get a reaction. It's their weapon of choice. They prod, they poke, they say something designed to get under your skin, and the moment you snap, defend yourself, or get flustered, they've won. Because in that instant, you've handed over the wheel of your emotional state, and now they're driving. Here's what you need to understand. Your energy is currency. It's limited, it's valuable, and once you spend it, you can't get it back. Every time you let a toxic person wind you up, you're handing over your most valuable resource for free. You wouldn't give a thief your credit card and say, go wild. But emotionally, that's exactly what we do when we let someone dictate how we feel. When someone throws shade at you, when they disrespect you in public, when they send you that passive-aggressive text, they're not just communicating, they're fishing. They're throwing bait into the water to see if you'll bite. If you take it, they get exactly what they wanted, control. If you don't, they're left with their bait in the water and no catch. This doesn't mean you become a robot with no feelings. It means you choose when and how to engage. There's a massive difference between responding and reacting. A reaction is instant. It's emotional, unfiltered, and usually based on impulse. A response is deliberate. It's calculated. It's built on the question, what outcome do I want here? Let me give you a scenario. You're in a meeting, and someone undermines you in front of the team. Your gut reaction might be to fire back, defend yourself, or call them out on the spot. But if you do that in the heat of the moment, you risk looking defensive, angry, or unprofessional. And that's exactly the image they wanted to create. Now the room remembers your outburst, not their jab. But imagine you pause instead. You keep your expression neutral. You make a note of what they said. Later, you address it one-on-one, privately, with calm authority. Now you control the setting, the tone, and the narrative. You've taken away their ability to manipulate the room's perception of you. That's the difference between letting someone control your energy and taking ownership of it. The pause is your greatest weapon. That 2 or 3 seconds before you speak can be the difference between giving them the win or keeping it for yourself. In those seconds, you ask yourself, is what I'm about to say going to move me forward? Or is it just feeding their fire? In high-pressure situations, whether it's an interrogation, a heated negotiation, or even a personal argument, the person who keeps their composure has the advantage. The one who stays calm sees more clearly, hears more carefully, and thinks more strategically. When you lose your temper, your field of vision narrows. You stop seeing the big picture because your brain is focused on the immediate threat. That's when mistakes happen. And toxic people, they're counting on that. Here's another reality. Some people are addicted to drama. They feed off chaos because it gives them a rush, a sense of control, even a twisted kind of entertainment. If you match their chaos with your chaos, you're not just giving them what they want, you're stepping into their arena where they know all the rules and you don't. So don't play their game. If they raise their voice, lower yours. If they try to rush you into a decision, slow the pace. If they flood you with negativity, respond with silence or a short, factual statement. This isn't about being passive. It's about being in control of you, because here's the truth. You can't control them, but you can make sure they never get to steer you. One of the most effective ways to protect your energy is to decide in advance what your limits are. Before you walk into a meeting, a family gathering, or any environment where you know a toxic person will be, set your intention. No matter what they say or do, I will not let them get a reaction out of me. Treat it like a mental challenge, a test of discipline. And when you succeed, you walk away with more than just your energy intact. You walk away with proof that they can't touch you. It's also important to remember that controlling your energy isn't just about avoiding negative reactions. It's about protecting your positive state. Toxic people will try to drag you into their storm, but you can choose to stay in your calm. When you let your mood be determined by someone else's behavior, you're giving them remote access to your mind. But when you hold steady, you're sending a message. You don't get to decide how I feel today. That doesn't just protect you. It frustrates them. Nothing disarms a toxic person faster than realizing their favorite tricks don't work on you anymore. At first, they may try harder, escalate their tactics, or push new buttons. But eventually they'll move on to an easier target. Because without your energy, they have nothing to work with. Controlling your energy takes practice. You'll slip sometimes. You'll have moments where you walk away thinking, I can't believe I let them get to me. That's fine. It's part of the process. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. Each time you catch yourself and course correct, you're building emotional muscle. And just like physical muscle, the more you train it, the stronger it gets. The real shift happens when you stop seeing their behavior as something you need to match or defeat, and start seeing it as background noise you don't even need to tune into. You reserve your energy for the things that actually matter, your goals, your relationships, your own growth. That's how you win against toxic people without even stepping into their fight. Because at the end of the day, the smartest way to deal with them isn't to out-yell them, out-manipulate them, or out-argue them. It's to make their favorite game, getting a reaction from you, impossible to win. When you do that, you've not only kept your energy, you've kept your power. And that's something no one can take from you unless you hand it over. Boundaries are not walls to keep the whole world out. They are gates that you control. They decide who gets close, how close they get, and under what terms. Without them, you're essentially leaving the door to your life wide open and hoping no one with bad intentions walks in. But here's the reality. If you don't define the limits, someone else will. And they'll set them in a way that benefits them, not you. Toxic people are experts at testing limits. They'll push, prod, and see how far they can go. The first time they cross the line, if you say nothing, they take note. They see it as permission. And next time, they'll push further. This is why boundaries can't be vague. They have to be clear, firm, and consistently enforced. Because if you give an inch, you don't just lose an inch, you set a precedent. Boundaries are not about changing the other person's behavior. They are about controlling access to you. Think of yourself as a valuable property. You wouldn't let just anyone wander into your home, open your fridge, and take whatever they want. So why let just anyone wander into your mind, your emotions, and your time? Your energy is more valuable than anything you own, and yet people guard their possessions better than they guard their mental space. A lot of people struggle with boundaries because they're afraid of being seen as rude, difficult, or selfish. That fear is exactly what toxic people use to their advantage. They rely on your need to be liked, your hesitation to cause conflict, your tendency to over-explain yourself. But here's a truth that will change your life. Setting a boundary is not an act of aggression. It's an act of self-respect. It says, I value myself enough to protect what's important to me. Sometimes boundaries are physical. How close someone can get. How much of your personal space they can invade. Sometimes they're emotional, what parts of your life you're willing to share. And with whom. And sometimes they're about time, how much of it you give and when. For example, if someone constantly calls you at night to unload their problems, and you answer every time, you're teaching them that your peace has no closing hours. But if you start letting the phone go to voicemail after a certain hour, you're sending a new message, my time has limits. The tricky part is that boundaries will always be tested. Some people test them accidentally, not realizing they've crossed a line. Others test them deliberately, just to see if you're serious. And when you enforce that boundary, they might get angry, defensive, or try to guilt you into bending it. This is the moment where most people fold. They think, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I should just let it go this time. But the moment you give in, you've trained them that your boundaries are negotiable. You have to be willing to let people be uncomfortable with your limits. Not everyone will like them. Some will call you cold, unapproachable, or stubborn. That's fine. You're not setting boundaries to make other people happy. You're setting them to protect your own mental and emotional well-being. The people who truly respect you will adjust. The ones who don't, they were only benefiting from your lack of boundaries in the first place. There's also a quiet confidence that comes with clear boundaries. You stop feeling the need to over-explain yourself. You stop seeking approval for your decisions. You simply act in alignment with your standards. You say no without a long story attached. You decline without apologizing for existing. That simplicity sends a strong message. I'm in control of my life. I've seen this play out in professional environments over and over. The person with weak boundaries ends up with all the extra work, all the late night calls, all the stress that wasn't theirs to begin with. The person with strong boundaries is still respected, but they're respected more. Why? Because when you respect your own limits, others are more likely to respect them too. It's the same in personal relationships. If someone constantly criticizes you, makes cutting jokes at your expense, or violates your trust and you keep allowing it, you're teaching them that your comfort is negotiable. But the first time you calmly say, I'm not okay with that, and then follow through by stepping back if it happens again, you're teaching them that your comfort is a condition for being in your life. Boundaries also work as a filter. They reveal who belongs in your circle and who doesn't. The people who push against your boundaries, argue with them, or try to tear them down are showing you that they don't respect you. And that's not someone you need close. The ones who adjust without drama, those are the people worth keeping. But here's the key. A boundary is only as strong as your willingness to enforce it. It's not enough to declare it. You have to act on it. If you tell someone, don't speak to me like that, but then let them do it again with no consequence, you've just taught them that your words have no weight. A boundary without enforcement is just a suggestion. At first, this might feel unnatural, especially if you've been a people pleaser your whole life. You might feel guilt, doubt, or discomfort. That's normal. You're breaking old patterns and building new ones. Over time, enforcing your boundaries will become second nature. And you'll notice something powerful. Toxic people will start disappearing from your life. Not because you've chased them away, but because they can no longer operate in an environment where they can't cross lines without consequence. The invisible fence you build with boundaries is not meant to isolate you. It's meant to keep your space safe enough for the right people to come in. And the right people won't just accept your boundaries, they'll appreciate them because healthy people have boundaries of their own. When you commit to your boundaries, you're making a declaration: I am not available for disrespect. I am not available for manipulation. I am not available for chaos that I did not create. And that declaration doesn't just keep toxic people in check. It transforms how you see yourself. You stop operating from defense and start operating from self-respect. Once you have that invisible fence in place, the next step is knowing when to step back entirely. And that's where strategic disengagement comes in. Because sometimes the smartest way to win against a toxic person is to not play at all. Sometimes the smartest move you can make is no move at all. That's hard for a lot of people to accept because we live in a world that tells us we need to confront everything, prove our point, get the last word. But here's the truth: not every battle is worth fighting. Not every provocation deserves your energy, and not every toxic person needs to be corrected, exposed, or taught a lesson. In fact, trying to do so often pulls you exactly where they want you, into the mess. Strategic disengagement is about recognizing when continuing the interaction serves no purpose except to drain you. It's not weakness, it's not avoidance, it's the discipline to choose where you invest your time and emotional resources. When you disengage strategically, you're making a calculated decision that the outcome of this exchange will cost you more than it's worth. And the moment you decide that, you take back control. Here's the problem with always engaging. Toxic people are masters at twisting the narrative. You call them out and suddenly they're the victim. You defend yourself and they claim you're overreacting. You try to reason with them and they distort your words until you barely recognize what you said. In these situations, every word you say becomes another weapon in their hands. Sometimes the only winning move is to put the weapon down by saying nothing at all. Disengagement doesn't always mean physically walking away, although sometimes it does. It can also mean mentally stepping back. You can sit in the same room as someone and still disengage by refusing to participate in their games. You stop feeding the conversation with emotional fuel. You answer with short, factual statements. You let their bait hang in the air without biting. You take away the satisfaction they get from pulling you into their drama. Think of a toxic interaction like a fire. Every time you explain, defend, argue, or react, you're tossing in more wood. Without that fuel, the fire eventually burns out. Some people can't stand that. They'll push harder, raise their voice, throw out insults, or escalate just to get you back in. That's where your resolve is tested. Strategic disengagement requires you to be comfortable with silence, with letting them flail around without a response. It's uncomfortable at first, not because they have power over you, but because most of us are conditioned to fill silence and fix tension. I've been in situations where the safest, smartest move was to simply end the conversation. In high-stakes environments, that could mean physically removing myself. In everyday life, it might mean saying, "I'm not going to have this conversation right now," and walking away. It could mean not responding to a text designed to provoke you. It could mean ignoring the email that's more about starting a fight than solving a problem. What's important is that disengagement is a choice, not a retreat. You're not walking away because you can't handle it. You're walking away because you've decided it's not worth it. That distinction matters because it keeps you in the driver's seat. The person who chooses when and how to engage is the one with the real power. There's also a long game to strategic disengagement. Toxic people feed on attention. When you stop giving them that attention, they may become louder for a while, like a fire flaring up before it dies. But eventually, they have to find another source of fuel. If you stay consistent, you'll notice they either scale back their behavior or shift their focus elsewhere. In both cases, you win without ever stepping into the fight. One thing to be clear on: disengagement doesn't mean you ignore bad behavior forever. In situations where someone's actions have real consequences, in the workplace, in your home, in public, you may need to address it, but address it when you decide, in the setting you choose, and with the tone you control. That's still engagement on your terms, not theirs. Some people struggle with disengagement because they feel they need closure. They want the toxic person to understand their side. Admit they were wrong, or at least acknowledge the harm they've caused. But here's the hard truth. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you deciding that their understanding is not required for your peace. When you stop expecting them to get it, you free yourself from the trap of chasing validation they'll never give. Another trap is the belief that if you don't stand up to them right now, you're letting them win. But here's the thing. Toxic people measure winning by how much of your time, attention, and energy they can consume. By refusing to give them that, you're not losing, you're starving their game. Sometimes the quiet walk away is the loudest statement you can make. This approach can also be a shield for your mental and emotional well-being. Disengaging before you reach the point of frustration or anger protects you from saying or doing something you'll regret. It keeps you from stooping to their level. It preserves your energy for the fights that actually matter, the ones that lead to progress, not just exhaustion. The real challenge in mastering strategic disengagement is knowing when to deploy it. That comes with self-awareness. Pay attention to your body in these interactions. Are your shoulders tensing? Is your heart rate climbing? Are you starting to repeat yourself or raise your voice? Those are signs you're about to cross from control into reaction, and that's your cue to step back. With practice, you'll start spotting these moments earlier. You'll see the bait before it's even thrown. You'll hear the shift in tone that signals the conversation is turning into a trap. And instead of falling in, you'll choose to step out. The first few times, it might feel unnatural. But the more you do it, the more you'll realize the power in restraint. Because in the end, the smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't always to outwit them in the moment. It's to remove yourself from their board entirely. You can't lose a chess game if you never sit down at the table. And when you master that, you stop playing their game altogether and start winning your own. Becoming untouchable doesn't mean you won't face toxic people anymore. It doesn't mean life will suddenly get easier or that no one will ever try to get under your skin again. What it does mean is this. No matter what they throw at you, it won't stick. You'll have built yourself into someone so grounded, so secure, so confident in who you are that their words, their games, and their energy simply bounce off. Most people approach toxic situations by focusing on controlling the other person. They think, if I can just get them to see reason, if I can make them change, if I can explain myself better, then it will stop. But that's like trying to control the wind. Exhausting, frustrating, and completely out of your hands. The smarter approach is to strengthen yourself so much that the wind doesn't knock you over. Inner fortitude starts with knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. If your sense of self depends on other people's approval, you're vulnerable. Every insult, every judgment, every sideways comment becomes a threat to your identity. But if you've done the work to define your own worth, you stop outsourcing your value to people who haven't earned the right to shape it. This work isn't glamorous. It's built in the daily habits no one sees, showing up for yourself even when no one's watching, keeping promises to yourself, holding yourself accountable, setting goals, and actually following through. Every time you follow through on something you said you'd do, you're telling yourself, I can trust me. And the more you trust yourself, the less you need anyone else's validation. Confidence is a side effect of self-respect. It's not about walking into a room and thinking you're better than everyone. It's about walking into a room and not needing to compare yourself to anyone at all. That's what makes you untouchable. You're not in competition with them. You're not trying to prove anything to them. And you're not seeking anything from them, which means they have no leverage. Toxic people thrive on finding cracks in your armor. If you're insecure about your abilities, they'll question your competence. If you're sensitive about your appearance, they'll make little digs about it. If you're unsure of your decisions, they'll plant seeds of doubt. Inner fortitude means closing those cracks. Not by pretending you have no weaknesses, but by owning them. When you own your flaws, they stop being weapons anyone can use against you. Part of building this resilience is exposing yourself to challenge on purpose. Too many people avoid discomfort, but growth lives there. The more you push yourself in controlled, intentional ways, whether it's in your fitness, your learning, your work, the more you train your mind to handle pressure. And when you've trained under pressure, the everyday provocations from toxic people feel small in comparison. It's also about emotional discipline. You can't be untouchable if you're controlled by every feeling that passes through you. That doesn't mean shutting your emotions off. It means learning to feel them without letting them dictate your actions. Anger, frustration, disappointment. These are all normal responses. But you get to decide whether they run the show. When you pause before you speak, when you take a breath before you respond, you're reminding yourself that you are in charge, not your impulses. Another layer of fortitude comes from the company you keep. If you're surrounded by people who drain you, doubt you, or disrespect you, you're constantly patching holes in your energy. But when you choose to spend your time with people who push you to grow, who encourage you, who hold you accountable in a healthy way, you're building a support system that reinforces your strength. No one is completely self-sufficient. Even the most resilient people have allies, mentors, or friends who remind them of who they are when they forget. You also have to get comfortable with the fact that not everyone will like you. In fact, the stronger you become, the more you'll trigger some people, especially those who benefit from others being weak or compliant. Your growth might make them uncomfortable, and they might try to pull you back down to where they feel safe. That's not your problem. The goal isn't to be universally liked. The goal is to be respected by yourself. The most untouchable people I've met share one common trait. They don't argue with reality. They don't waste energy wishing toxic people were different. They accept that some people operate from insecurity, envy, or malice, and they adjust their approach accordingly. That acceptance is liberating because it means you stop taking it personally and start focusing on what you can control, your boundaries, your reactions, and your path forward. Inner fortitude isn't about being cold or unfeeling. It's about having such a solid foundation that you can be kind without being exploited, generous without being drained, and open without being naive. It's about knowing that even if someone disrespects you, it doesn't shake your self-worth. Even if someone lies about you, it doesn't alter the truth. Even if someone tries to undermine you, it doesn't touch your capability. This strength is built over time through small, consistent choices. Every time you stand up for yourself, you reinforce it. Every time you walk away from something that doesn't serve you, you reinforce it. Every time you choose your peace over your pride, you reinforce it. One day you'll realize you're not just surviving toxic people anymore. You're operating in a way where their power over you is gone entirely. When you reach that point, dealing with toxic people stops being a constant battle. You see them, you recognize the patterns, and you handle it without losing your center. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself to them or prove anything. You know exactly who you are, what you stand for, and what you will and will not accept. And when you stand in that place, there's nothing they can take from you. That's what it means to be untouchable. Not that the world changes, but that you've built yourself into someone who moves through it with strength, clarity, and unshakable self-respect. And once you've got that, you'll never go back to giving your power away again. At the end of the day, toxic people are not the problem you need to solve. They are the reality you need to navigate. You can spend your life trying to change them, trying to win them over, trying to prove them wrong. Or you can take the smarter route. You can master yourself. When you understand that their behavior is about them, you stop taking it personally. When you control your energy, you stop giving them access to your emotions. When you set and enforce boundaries, you decide who gets a seat at your table. When you disengage strategically, you refuse to be dragged into battles that aren't worth your time. And when you build inner fortitude, you reach the point where they can't touch your peace, your confidence, or your purpose. The smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't to beat them at their own game. It's to make sure you're not even playing. You have one life, one mind, one reservoir of energy. Don't waste it on people who only want to drain it. Protect it like it's the most valuable thing you own. Because it is. Remember this. You are not here to be at the mercy of anyone's dysfunction. You are here to live with clarity, strength, and purpose. And the moment you stop giving toxic people power over you, you step into a level of freedom most people never experience. That's when you stop just surviving life and start owning it. Walk out of here today with this truth burned into you. They only win if you let them. And now you never will.